Do you hear that? It's called speaker feedback.
That was rude.
It happens whenever the sound entering a microphone is reproduced by a loudspeaker, picked up by the microphone, and re-amplified again and again. Much like the painful feedback you just heard, a lot of people would prefer to avoid feedback in the workplace as well because, well, it sometimes hurts. While feedback can be painful or even misleading, there are several risks of not seeking feedback in the workplace. And in this video, we will touch on the risk of not seeking feedback, why some organizations won't hire you if you're allergic to feedback, how you can be better at inviting and receiving feedback, and how to savvily respond when you receive criticism so you still come out a winner. There are 5 key risks to not seeking feedback. Number 1, decreased trust. As you know from the feedback loop, feedback is a great rapport building hack. That said, if feedback is not sought or given regularly, it can erode trust and lead to negative relationships between you and your manager and others. 2, lack of growth. Without feedback, it is difficult to know what you're doing well and what you need to improve on. As a result, you may not have the opportunity to learn and grow. Number 3, decreased motivation. If you do not receive feedback, you may become demotivated and lose interest in your work. That's due to both the lack of engagement, even though feedback can hurt, but also because feedback is also positive and it lets you know your contributions are being noticed and appreciated. You feel valued. Next, poor performance. Without feedback, you may not realize when your performance is not meeting expectations. This can lead to poor performance and potentially negative consequences. Finally, communication problems. Lack of feedback can lead to misunderstandings and communication breakdowns between you, your manager, and others. Overall, not seeking feedback can have negative consequences for both you and the organization as a whole. If you're a leader of people, fostering a culture of open feedback will be your secret weapon, especially if the rest of the org sucks at it. Realizing the huge benefit of a culture of feedback, some organizations won't even consider hiring you if you're not good at both giving and receiving feedback. Netflix is an example of this. There, a candidate generally goes through 2 rounds of interviews, each with 4 different interviewers. During this first panel of interviewers, it's normal to get feedback. Then, in the later panel, you'd be assessed for your receptiveness to that feedback. For example, at the end of an interview, the interviewer might say, "I really liked XYZ, but I want to point out a concern I have. You didn't ask very many questions, which made me wonder if you're really interested in this role." The goal was twofold. 1, we wanted to see how that person responds to criticism. Do they get uncomfortable or take note and ask qualifying questions? Do they own it or fight it? Are they self-aware and able to manage their own emotions, or do they lack that self-control? If they could not handle receiving feedback, then it would usually be an automatic pass. It was too integral to the culture and the top performer mindset. Second, it wasn't just about their emotional, in-the-moment response. It was also about if they took it to heart and tried to make an adjustment in a later interview. After the feedback about questions, did this person show up in each interview that followed with thoughtful questions? If not, it would probably be a pass as they didn't take and apply that feedback. And we often took this a bit further by asking the candidate what feedback they had for us, either individually or as a company or the interview process. What would they change? What we were assessing here is if the candidate feels comfortable providing feedback versus just being agreeable. The edge obviously goes to the person who provided feedback, even if it wasn't amazing feedback. Key is that they tried. Your ability to give and receive feedback is critical for an organization to constantly improve and achieve the highest level of success. For this reason, it's also critical to your success as a top performer. And let's call out the elephant in the room. Some leaders and organizations are better at feedback than others. Even in a company renowned for its feedback like Netflix, some leaders fostered it better than others. The key is for you to welcome it, be open to it, and set an example of openness for others, as being closed off to it is harmful to you. It will hold you and your career back.
I can't hear you. I'm breaking up with you. I need some time.
Now here's a powerful combination. Something that was invaluable during my career was the ability to foster candid feedback with my top performer tribe. I can't count how many times their feedback saved me from making a critical mistake. I'd almost always run critical things by them so they could beat it up and make it better. Having a group of trusted individuals who are pushing each other to be their best is an incredible advantage you want to give yourself. Being open to this feedback makes these individuals give it to you straight when it comes to reviewing a big presentation, or even just to review a small but critical email that you're afraid is going to come across as too inhumane. The key to fostering this community is to be open and grateful for feedback. 3 of the best filmmakers today, Alfonso Cuarón, Guillermo del Toro, and Alejandro González Iñárritu, the 3 Mexican filmmakers affectionately dubbed as the 3 amigos in the movie industry, have 5 Academy Awards for Best Director between them. but they acknowledge that a good amount of their success comes in how brutal they get when it comes to critiquing each other's films. Another example, the famous crawl on Star Wars wouldn't exist if it wasn't for a brutal feedback session from filmmaker Brian De Palma to George Lucas. Ultimately, you and they should make the feedback truthful and useful and not destructive. Here's how you can be more successful at receiving feedback. Ask for it. The act of doing this regularly develops a feedback muscle, which makes it easier. You can say, what could I be doing better at? Or is there anything you'd like to see more of from me? When it feels hard, remember all of the benefits we've mentioned and the risks not to openly receive and deliver feedback. You have a lot more to gain than you do to lose. When you ask for feedback, you need to make a commitment to first ask qualifying questions and not jump to defense, which is where your lizard brain wants to take you. If you are quick to defend, then the other person, say your boss, may shy away from providing feedback until it hits a critical point. By that point, it could be too late to implement it. It is critical that you get the feedback, even if the feedback they provide is invalid. At that point, you still want the chance to manage the perception versus it becoming part of your image. Plus, remember, what you fight, you ignite, and you'd rather be perceived as someone who is open to feedback versus always fighting it. You have to decide in the moment if it's time to rebuttal, or if you're better off giving yourself some space. Ultimately, if you just feel like you're poking a bear and you're going to anger it, then you're better off taking a moment, take that feedback, especially if you're feeling emotional about your response, because you can always come back later with a plan to address it. One that's not as full of the emotion in the moment. You can let them know at that time you heard them, but you believe that this is still the right thing to do, and here is why, and hear what they have to say back. That said, make sure you're asking yourself if you're trying to win the battle, that one disagreement, or the war, your long-term aspirations. Then, based on that, make your move. Here's an experience I had that may help you as well. There was an occasion when I was in a senior staff meeting and a senior colleague suggested to my boss that I was not being a very good partner because I wasn't attending the 3 hours of meetings each week to review production schedules. To be frank, I saw those meetings as a waste of my time. I had nothing to add, but because he was the host of that particular meeting, he wasn't feeling the love when I didn't show up. I could see he was in a heightened emotional state, yes, over a meeting, and even though I disagreed with him, I didn't want it to erupt during a professional meeting, so I thanked him for the feedback and said I'd be at the next meeting. I then purposely slid in a comment that I knew my boss would hear. I said, perhaps in our next team meeting, we could discuss where we have meetings that more than one of us attend and decide if we can divide and conquer to maximize everyone's time. I admitted that I had already been doing some of these scheduling gymnastics in my head when I misjudged this particular meeting that I didn't attend. I added that this would really help, I think, everybody else as we look at our aggressive priorities, and everyone nodded. And when I say everyone nodded, I mean even the person who I slighted because I skipped their meeting, because they appreciated that I owned up to the fact that maybe I misjudged it. This is what he needed to feel better. I conceded the battle, but I won the war because in our review of schedules in the next staff meeting, it was determined that only my senior colleague was needed for that meeting. Woohoo! I saved everybody time.
Well played.
Your ability to read the room will help you determine when it is worth pushing back on something directly or finding a savvy workaround that lets everyone save face. Those of us who lean into logic can get frustrated by this, but you have to remember that we humans are irrational in seeking our own significance. The way I handled this example let my senior colleague feel validated, and my boss saw my cool, calm, and collected manner, paired with a suggestion to make us all better, whereas my colleague came across as emotional and grandstanding. Had I handled that conversation with anger, I would have gained nothing. As a framework, in case you want to apply it, it looks something like this. Listen to the other person, understand what is important to them and validate their feelings. Apologize and own it because it will diffuse a situation that might otherwise explode. Share your plan to resolve the issue moving forward. Your initial plan may not be the ultimate outcome you'd like to achieve. That's okay. You can always revisit after when the situation is less emotional. If you can think quick enough to propose a win-win that can help the person and you, then do it. If you can't in the moment, that's okay. You can construct a revised plan after the meeting and present it in a follow-up. 5 things to remember about feedback. People tend to remember a situation more for the emotions than they do the response, meaning what you fight, you ignite. Choose carefully how you respond in the moment, because that's what they're going to remember. Hear the feedback out and decide if and how you want to implement it, but don't ignore it, as your image will be of someone who is dismissive of feedback and self-development. Third, remember that feedback, right or wrong, is your chance to manage your image in the eyes of others. Remember the power of closing the feedback loop for building trust and moving a relationship into sponsorship. Finally, you want to make asking for feedback a regular part of what you do. Not only will you benefit, but it also tends to make others more open to you as well. Just as GPS helps guide us to our desired destination, feedback helps guide us to our goals and objectives, and it can help us navigate challenges and make course corrections along the way. Speaking of feedback, if you have any for me in regards to this program, I would love to hear it. Positive or constructive, feel free to send me a message if there's anything I can do that you believe will help improve this program, or if there are specific things that have really made a positive impact for you. Your feedback is super helpful, as it's going to help me to build the best program possible for people who are trying to accelerate their careers, which is ultimately my goal. And I will see you at the top. That's it for this lesson. I hope you found it valuable. If so, this is one of the core lessons from my Career Accelerator system. If you want the full course with the workbook, scripts, and bonus tools, you can get access at careeraccelerator.me. Or you can dive into the next lesson here.